in this passage, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and they're accusing him. It's getting to the point where in the Gospel of John, everything pivots after chapter 11 when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. The first half of the book of John is the book of signs, where Jesus does all his miracles. The last half of the book is when Jesus begins to be persecuted and culminates in his crucifixion. It's the book of glory. And so he's talking to the Pharisees and stuff here, and he speaks to them. And let's just start in verse 56. John 8:56 says, this is Jesus speaking. He said, "Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad." And then John says, "So the Jews said to him, 'You're not even 50 years old. How have you seen Abraham?'" Remember, this was like 2,000 years after Abraham would have been born. They said, "You're not even 50 years old. How can you say you've seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." And so they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went into the temple. So this is really cool. So the day, quote, the day, that idea, that phrase, the day, in Jewish terminology usually signifies the appearance of the Messiah in the last days. And so he says in verse 56, "Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day, the day of the Lord," and Abraham rejoiced. Now, some later Jewish rabbis in the Mishnah and the Talmud actually attributed that Abraham looked forward and saw all of God's people in the future who would come of him, out of his loins, with the promise that he was going to have an offspring, and they would be multitude of nations, and they would number as like the stars in the sky. Now, I don't think that's biblical. Abraham didn't see all that, but at least he did see Jesus in his coming day, because Jesus says he did right here. And so that day, the coming of the Messiah, is what Abraham looked forward to and saw. And it said he saw, and he was glad. Now that is the word glad is agalio, which is exalted, like incredibly joyful, like rejoicing. Incredibly, like high, exalted, very overjoyed is what that word means, is when it said he was glad. And so the word's also used in the New Testament for great and lively joy, like Matthew 5:12. The word's used there, "Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. So they persecuted the prophets who were before you," etc. So rejoice, be overjoyed, is what Jesus was telling his followers. And that's what Abraham was here, is he was overjoyed. And ironic, and they said, "So you're not even 50. How have you seen Abraham yet?" And that's like me, born in 1990. Right now, I'm 32 years old. I was 32 yesterday. My birthday was yesterday. Praise the Lord. I've had 32 years. That's awesome. And I hope I have many more, because I have a baby coming and I want to be alive as long as I can to be in that baby's life. But it'd be like me saying, "Hey, Abraham," or George Washington saw my day and looked forward to it and was glad. Everybody'd be like, "Dude, you're not even 40. How can you say you've seen George Washington, who died 200 years before you were born?" It's kind of the same idea. So what he was saying is like weird to them. But the thing is, it's ironic that Abraham was so overly exalted and highly joyful of the coming of the Messiah that Jesus explains here. But yet his descendants, who Jesus is talking to, were very upset. I mean, verse 59 said they immediately picked up stones to kill him, to murder him, because they were so mad at what he was saying. Do you see the irony between those two things? That Abraham was joyed, but then his descendants hated Jesus and wanted to kill him. And so, but the key moment right here is in verse 58. Verse 58, Jesus said to them, in response to them asking, "Well, you're not even 50. How have you seen him?" He said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." I am. Now, this is juxtaposing the past tense of Abraham. Look, it says, before Abraham was, past tense, I am, present tense. Jesus intentionally breaks Greek grammar to say this. It's one thing to say before Abraham was, I was, which means, okay, you're really old at this point. You'd be over 2,000 years old. But he says, before Abraham was, I am. And don't miss that. That is important, because I am, that emphatic ego, I, me, that is an emphatic I am. It's technically I am, because ego, the two words here are ego, I, me. Ego means I. It's the pronoun for I. I, me is I am. So it really means I am. And to repeat that I in there is to show emphasis. It's kind of like in Spanish when you say yo soy. Yo is the pronoun I. Soy is I am. So if you say yo soy, it's I am. You don't have to put the yo on the front, and you don't have to put the ego on the front either. In English, we kind of lose that because we don't have pronouns built into the verbs. Like am is not just first person singular, like with an I. But the main point is that Jesus is invoking the divine name of God from Exodus 3:14. Exodus 3:14 is when God said to Moses in the burning bush, I am that which I am, or I am who I am. I am is the divine title of God. Yahweh, the name Yahweh is essentially how you say he is. To say Yahweh is he is. I am, Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh is like how you say I am, but we can't say I am. We have to say when we refer to God, he is, and that's why the divine name is Yahweh. That's how you say he is in Hebrew. And so God alone reserves the right to say I am, because when we speak of God, we have to speak of him in third person. He is. But Jesus takes upon the divine I am of God and says it here emphatically. And he said, before Abraham was, I am. So he breaks Greek grammar in order to do this. He should have said, before Abraham was, I was. But he says, before Abraham was, I am, to prove a point. And verse 59 demonstrates that that's what he meant, that he was saying, I am God to them, very emphatically, very, very real to them. It's one thing to Jesus to just walk up and say, I'm God. But people want to look for the Bible for Jesus to say, I am God, just to say it like that. But that's not how he said it. He said it in ways that really even more drastically communicated that idea. He took upon all the titles of God himself. He said, I do what God alone can do, like forgive sins and stuff like that, judge the living and the dead. And so he said, before Abraham was, I am, and said the divine name. And so in verse 59, they picked up stones to throw at him, not because they were just mad, but they truly believed he was blaspheming. They thought he was just a guy claiming to be God in the most emphatic way possible. And that's why they picked up stones to throw at him, but he hid himself and went out of the temple. John uses this I am multiple places in the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John's entire point is to show you that Jesus is God. Okay, so he uses the I am in various places. I'm going to go through these really quick. 6:35, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall not thirst. It's the same one. Ego I me invokes the name of God. John 8:12, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light. In John 10:7, Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen. I am the door, and anyone who comes to me will be protected. John 11:25, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he dies, yet he shall live, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Let's see, another one. This is a good one. John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Every one of these is I am. It's ego I me. John 15:1, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. I am, ego I me. And then last one, this is so cool, guys. This one is really awesome. John 18:4. Okay, so Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's about to be arrested. And Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, whom do you seek? And these are the guards, Roman guards. They answered him, quote, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus said to them, I am. Now your English Bible might say I am he, because that's a little easier to kind of understand. The Greek, literally, guys, the Greek only says, John 18:5, right here, ego I me. I am. It doesn't say I am he, it just says I am. They said, we're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am. But look at what happens as soon as he says it. Judas, who was betraying him, standing with him. And when Jesus said to them, I am, they drew back and fell on the ground. The power that Jesus had in just invoking the name of God, the God that he is, made people fall down. They drew back and fell to the ground when he said, I am. It's just so cool to imagine that, you know? So, the reaction that the Jews had is expected when they said, so they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, because Leviticus 24 in the law says anyone who blasphemes God is to be put to death. They really thought, we have to put him to death. He is committing the highest form of blasphemy. And so that's why they tried to stone him. But guys, it's not because he was just making them mad. It's because that Jesus was invoking and saying, I am God. I stand before you. I pre-existed Abraham. I will exist after him. I am the Lord God Almighty. That's what he said, and that's why they reacted like that.